Across America and the world, in the depths of forests, is an elusive man-like creature, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Thousands of reports, photos, and videos pour in each year of Bigfoot encounters from all 49 continental states and Canada.
We're talking about a living, breathing population. There has to be a minimum of 4,000 animals roaming North America.
And public interest is only increasing.
It's very mainstream. It's cool to be into Bigfoot.
Bigfoot fervor is at a fever pitch in this country.
But what exactly are these mysterious creatures that have caught so much attention? What does science have to say about them? And why are many so sure they exist? We've set out to find the truth in Chasing Bigfoot. While still unconfirmed as an actual species, a certain picture has emerged, a picture describing what is called Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Glowing eyes, a muscular body covered in hair, and of course, 2 big feet. This image of Bigfoot is burned into the minds of believers and non-believers alike. A bipedal, ape-like wild man of the woods, a cryptid.
What a cryptid is an animal that's generally not recognized by science. There's been no taxonomy on it. There's a ton of animals that people see on a regular basis. There's some evidence that they exist, but we do not have them officially logged.
If Bigfoots do exist, what are they? Indeed, most believe that Bigfoot is an undiscovered primate species.
Based on the evidence, I'm convinced that Bigfoots are real creatures.
I think it's possibly a North American ape that hasn't been discovered.
I also believe it's a real creature, and I believe it's flesh and blood.
I think it is it's an actual animal.
Bigfoot probably broke off between the 2 species of the primate human and the primate ape. And that's why he's a different type of a species.
Cliff Barackman is an acclaimed Bigfoot researcher and host of the hit Animal Planet series, Finding Bigfoot.
From my personal experience, I've never had anything happen, ever, that would convince me that these things are anything other than a perfectly normal species of ape or higher primate of some sort that shares a planet with us.
Some believe that Bigfoot is closely related to humans. But if Bigfoot is an ape or something similar, where could a primate species like this have originated? Fossil records indicate Asia. Indeed, the extinct ape Gigantopithecus is a possible candidate for an ancestor.
It looks like Gigantopithecus was a bamboo-eating ape that possibly been on all fours, but if you look at some of the parasitology that's been studied from the scat that's been found in the United States, there's parasites that are consistent with animals and people only found in southwest China, which of course that's where Gigantopithecus came from. And of course you would have had the land bridge 10 to 20,000 years ago, so that's how something like that would have came into the United States.
While working for the American Museum of Natural History in New York, Dr. Esteban Sarmiento was the go-to primatologist on evidence relating to Bigfoot.
If Bigfoot did exist, and he is a great ape, he didn't come from North America. He must have came over from Asia. And that's the other thing too. When you look at the First Nation, or you look at American Indian lore, it's not an animal that lives down in Guadalajara, in Mexico or the Caribbean. It's an animal that's really coming from the Northwest. And it has like the same distribution as other animals that came over the Bering Strait from Asia.
It's a possibility that Sasquatch emigrated across the Bering Land Bridge, but there is an equally plausible idea that they were always here in one way, shape, or form.
Bigfoot was first known in North America through the rock art and folklore of Native Americans, where the name Sasquatch or hairy giant had its origins. The first recorded sighting of Bigfoot by a white man occurred in 1811 in the town of Jasper in Alberta, Canada, by a trader named David Thompson. He reported footprints in the snow that were 14 inches long and 8 inches wide. At the same time, reports surfaced around the globe of creatures similar to Bigfoot, from the Yeti of the Himalayas to the Yeren of China and the Yowie of Australia. But the bulk of sightings have been in the Pacific Northwest, using the U.S.'s own title of Bigfoot. This title showed up in a 1958 newspaper article telling the story of a construction worker, Jerry Crew, in Humboldt County, California. Crew had found 16-inch footprints, and the name Bigfoot was born. However, when the construction company's owner, Raymond Wallace, passed away, his son revealed large, poorly crafted wooden feet, and his family claimed that Wallace had faked the prints found by Crew. However, while some Bigfoot evidence has been proven to be a hoax, there is still a large amount of personal encounters and evidence that has kept the multitude of researchers, investigators, scientists, and cryptozoologists on the search for Bigfoot. Indeed, enough information has been gathered by these researchers to paint a consistent picture of the cryptid.
The appearance of a Sasquatch is somewhere between like an adult gorilla and a human being. Generally speaking, an adult male Sasquatch stands between 8 and 9 feet tall. They're very, very broad-shouldered, but maybe about 3.5, 4 feet wide at the shoulder. A lot of times they kind of narrow at the hips a little bit, very, very muscular.
They obviously have a different neck structure, a different leg structure, a different bone structure than we do.
I've heard of Sasquatches being reddish in color, black in color, gray, coyote colored, sort of like all, the fur runs the gamut, and so does the skin tone as well. I've heard of like Caucasian kind of skin tones, I've heard gray, dark black, I've heard reddish, all these things. Sasquatches have a huge genetic diversity, as would be expected of a species like that.
In addition, other Bigfoot experts point to ears on the side of the head, a flat face, and long limbs. And one thing that always remains consistent is their large feet, averaging 16 inches in length. And not only has Bigfoot's appearance been documented, but their behavior as well. They're thought to be shy, nomadic creatures that live in small family groups. Groups that travel not only in the Pacific Northwest, but have spread across all of North America.
Bigfoot is singular, it's not plural. So a lot of people think, oh, it's just one animal walking around. And no, we're talking about a living, breathing population of maybe North American apes or even humans.
Misconception, there's only one. I think there's probably thousands of them across the country, far more than we realize.
People only see them when there's wood, water, and hills, but there's far more sightings than are reported. And for that reason, if you take how many are reported every year, probably 300, 400 good reports a year, you figure only 1% of the people are reporting them. And so there has to be a minimum of 4,000 animals roaming North America.
I don't think there's that many of them. I think, just for instance, the Olympic Peninsula here, 100 miles by 100 miles, if I was going to guess, I would say there might be 20 of them.
Longtime investigator Mark DeWerth is a member of the Ohio Bigfoot Organization.
I think a part of their success is that they don't show any allegiance to any specific habitat. Now, I call them nomadic. Some people say, well, maybe their territories could be 200 square miles, but I think they wander. If there's food, they keep coming back. If they get detected, they leave. They're real smart about what they do. I mean, the history shows that. I mean, they're the ultra elusive creature.
Sasquatches are probably as adaptable in their habitat as human beings are because their intelligence approaches ours. Basically, Sasquatches can live anywhere that there's food, water, and cover. A lot of times, they're seen in places very unexpected.
It is possible that Bigfoots maintain a hierarchy, with a typical alpha female and male who keep the group safe and kick out younger males once they become mature. Others believe that males remain solitary, while females travel with their infants and juveniles. There has also been speculation as to how Bigfoots have adapted to their environment.
I have a working theory, and other people may disagree, that squatches aren't that active during the summertime. One, it's rather hot. Two, the vegetation is abundant, so they really don't need to do a lot of foraging. But come fall, the vegetation has become scarce. The weather starts getting colder. They're wanting more protein, more fat in their system. And that's the reason, and they start being more active, and forage, especially during the fall.
Other people say they migrate during the course of a year. It's a logical thing to migrate, but there's no proof that they do. Some of them stay in the same place winter, spring, summer, and fall. They don't go anywhere else.
You're looking at an animal that is anywhere from 400 to 600 pounds. So his calorie intake is going to be much higher than a normal human being. Something like this, you're probably looking at about 5,000 calorie intake a day. So he's going to spend every waking moment looking for food, meaning he's going to find food, he's going to get his fill, he's going to sleep for a little bit and get right back up and keep on doing the same process over and over. When it comes to the habitat, he's going to mostly be a vegetarian, but he will eat meat when necessary.
There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that says that Bigfoot creatures are completely omnivorous. They're not like gorillas where they're just eating bamboo and things like that. They have very few plants that they eat. These things have been known to, be carrying off meat. They've been seen, with dead carrion over their shoulders. There's been a lot of reports of deer found with broken legs, twisted legs, and so on. And so I would imagine that this animal, because it leaves such a small trace of its existence, that it's feeding on a wide variety of food, from fruits and berries, nuts, toads, frogs, snakes, cattails, and deer meat.
There have been a variety of eyewitness accounts of Sasquatch lifestyle. Other ones have seen the way that they sleep. Very interesting, to say the least. They slept facing the ground with their hands tucked under their heads and their butts in the air. This is what one witness saw. There aren't too many of those. Other ones have seen Sasquatches go to the bathroom in a river, for crying out loud. Others have seen it doing it on dry land. So we have snatches and glimpses of what it is that help us to start filling in the gaps in the big puzzle as to what Sasquatch lifestyle is. We don't know where they go to die, or if they just die, period, without some kind of formalized ritual or some kind of instinctive migration to a place of final rest, as it were. We don't know any of these things. We can only surmise.
And then there is the nocturnal versus diurnal debate.
In terms of a nocturnal versus diurnal, diurnal would have to be the way to go because they're being seen in daylight and nighttime, and it's all based on what part of the country they're in and how much population base. If they're in a heavy population base, they're probably leaning more toward the nocturnal end. But if they're in an area where the biggest town is 15 people and the next biggest town's 100 miles away, then it's more wide open, free range, feed during the day, have lookouts and things like that.
A lot of sightings happen at night. In fact, the majority of them do. But many times there's daytime sightings that happen. Although rare, they do happen. Now, is that whether because the creature was disturbed and it had to move during the day? Or was it because they're still active during the day, they just stay very hidden? So I guess if I was to guess that they would be mainly nocturnal and they operate in that nighttime niche, but also maybe diurnal, where they are, operating day and night, depending on the season or the weather.
Vocalizations include screams, wails, whoops, and whistles. Listen now to this possible recording of a Bigfoot.
Do I think they have communication? I'm pretty certain they do. They have to. How they're doing it could be rock clacks, wood knocks, things like that. But they're definitely very, very high on the intelligence factor. I mean, think about it. What else walks on two legs? Only us. So it has to have a very large brain up top to do bipedal locomotion.
With a creature as large and intelligent as Bigfoot, one must wonder if they are dangerous to humans.
I think there's misconceptions on both ends of the spectrum, from Bigfoot as a gentle giant, never means us any harm, he's our forest buddy, he's there to look out for us, to the movies about Bigfoot today. The only movie that was ever made, in my opinion, that was worth watching was Harry and the Hendersons. And all the other movies I've seen are just Bigfoot's a slasher, bloodthirsty, rip people apart. I don't think that's fully true either. I believe it's probably happened, but I think Bigfoot are like us. You have good people and you have bad people.
Whether Bigfoot's dangerous is really kind of controversial. I mean, they're big, scary, powerful, big muscles. They throw things at people, but they always seem to miss people with their rocks, their sticks. So in my opinion, I don't think they're dangerous at all. I think they operate on fear.
I've heard cases of aggression, rocks being thrown at the house, at people, at their feet, not at them, but to hit at their feet. But I mean, think about it. If you and I were out in the woods and we're scared and we had our children up there and all of a sudden here comes, two bears, what are we gonna do? We're gonna cause some ruckus, commotion, act aggressive to get them to go away. So I think with those instances, it's where there's little ones around and people just don't realize it and they're getting too close, and like any mother, what are they gonna do? Defend it.
If I scare you away and you leave, nothing happened. That's bad. So it's a great way to get rid of people and really not have anything happen. If I throw a rock or two, or if I make a vocalization that you've never heard and it's over the top, you leave, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve without having to do anything.
So I would say comprehensively, there is no broader picture, but we do have glimpses and snatches of what the Sasquatch lifestyle is.
We've built a profile on the most common beliefs about Bigfoot as a living, breathing, human-like primate. But there's another side to the story.
I think there's maybe 4 or 5 different models. So you definitely have the flesh and blood creature, and that's kind of what most Bigfooters think. But some people think that there's a religious aspect to it, where people think that Cain could have been the first Bigfoot, or some of the other creatures when they talk about giants in the Bible. So Old Testament Bigfoot, I would call those. Then you have Bigfoot's an alien, where people think that Bigfoots are sent to Earth to do some kind of a project for the aliens. This includes those gray aliens and stuff like that. And then you have these Native American kind of a spirit animal things.
Every major Native American tribe in the United States has stories about these things.
Certainly the Native Americans feel that the animal is very spiritual. And there's certain people that have had, reported maybe some type of psychic contact or feeling that there was just something different about this than just a regular wild animal. Personally, I don't have any opinion. I believe they're a flesh and blood animal. I believe there's no sense in combining 2 mysteries to solve one. But I do have a lot of respect for the Native stories.
You know what? I really pay attention to the Native American aspect of Bigfoot, and I'll tell you why. They were here a lot longer than we've been here. And so they should know more about the subject matter because they were here longer. And Native Americans believe in Bigfoot more as a brother than as a creature. The Lakota Sioux call Bigfoot Chai Tonka, and I love that name because it is telling. They're not calling Bigfoot an animal, they're calling Bigfoot their brother. So I think it tells us to a certain degree that Bigfoot isn't necessarily an animal, it may be a type of a people.
Many tribes across North America describe a giant, hairy creature of the forest, sometimes possessing supernatural powers.
When I started doing Bigfoot research, my thinking was Bigfoot is a real flesh and blood creature, lives in the forest, must be very elusive. I don't know how they hide from people like they apparently do, but the more I've researched this, the more people I've talked to, the more experiences I've heard about. I don't discount anything anymore. When someone comes in and says, I once saw a Bigfoot and it disappeared while I was watching it, or strange things that would happen, lights that bounce through the woods at night and then a Bigfoot appears, or just their ability to be there and then not be there. Tracks that people are following that simply stop. Shapes and colors moving through the woods. And I've heard people describe having seen that phenomenon in the woods when they're out looking for Bigfoot. So I think I've definitely moved towards the paranormal or supernatural side of Bigfoot, just because I can't explain so much of what I've read and heard.
The Miwok Indians say wherever Sasquatch walks, a lantern follows. We've seen this light phenomenon when they're around. An area seems to illuminate in the area that they're around, and I think that's what the Miwok Indians of Yosemite Valley were talking about. Why would they say wherever Sasquatch goes, a lantern follows, if they weren't seeing some kind of phenomenon that supports that?
Winona Kirk traces her origin back to the Sioux Nation.
Some elders would say they're spirit, part animal. But the First Nations people, my relatives, have kind of a mystical or spiritual way of looking at all of creation. I believe different tribes have some varying beliefs and stories regarding Bigfoot, but some of them overlap, some of them are similar, and some of them are different. And you can find different beliefs on Bigfoot within one tribe, depending on who you talk to. There are stories of, in some tribes that they kidnap children. Now, an elder told me, he says, they do take children who are ill and return them well, healthy. So that was one of his old stories about their encounters in the past.
I would say there's another category that is starting to gain some momentum in the Bigfoot world, and some people disparagingly call them the woo people, but because they're paranormal. But these are the people that believe that Bigfoot can cloak, can travel through portals and stuff like that. And I'm not a big fan of that, because when you go to a bookstore and you want to buy a Bigfoot book, Bigfoot's already next to the vampires, werewolves, fairies, dragons, leprechauns. And what I love is, I do like that Bigfoot is in that fantastic category, but I also love that Bigfoot doesn't require magic to exist. We don't need Bigfoot to be magical to be cool, you know? So even though Bigfoot's in that same category where, where he's elusive and mysterious, by definition, he doesn't require magic. And that's why I like Bigfoot, because he's just like the horizon. You can see it, you can go towards it, but it'll always be right there in front of you.